Hey guys, it's Olivia. So I'm currently at Best Buy right now and they don't open for another 30 minutes, so I thought I would make a video. So today I want to do another psychology video, and this time tell you about the time that I was a research assistant and ignored people for the sake of science. Also, they've been done collecting this data for a year now, and I'm not going to tell you everything that was actually going on in the experiment, so I feel safe when telling you all of this stuff. So typically at a large research university, you'll have a professor, grad students, and then undergraduate student research assistants, and then undergraduate participants. So the professor will come up with an experiment, the grad students will design it and run it, and then the undergrads are who actually start the survey and whatnot for the undergrad participants. So I have been able to participate in a bunch of research, but also be a research assistant. So I joined a lab my sophomore year of college, and I assumed it was going to be like every lab where I was going to go in and just press start on some surveys for some people, sit back for 30 minutes, then do it again every 30 minutes. But this lab that I joined was different. In this lab, I was trained to be a confederate, and no, that's not like a person from the South. It is an actor in a psychology experiment. So you're actually in on the experiment, but the participant doesn't know. So usually confederates are used for eyewitness memory situations. So for example, a participant will go into an experiment, the researcher will be telling them, oh, okay, you're gonna fill out this survey. Then while they're telling them that, a guy will run in, steal the researcher's purse and run out, and then there will be a police type investigation, asking, not interrogation, but just asking the witness what they saw. And then afterwards, the participant will get a debriefing. Okay, this guy was actually in on it. He was an actor, he was a confederate, the guy that stole the purse, and this is an eyewitness memory experiment. So you're an actor in an experiment, but the participant is not in on it. So this experiment was different. It was a social interactions lab, and for part of the experiment, we had to raise the participants' cortisol levels. Well, there has been research done that knows when you get excluded from a social situation, your cortisol levels go up. And your cortisol levels are your stress hormone. So basically, we know when you're in a social situation where you are excluded from a group, your stress levels go up. So that was my role in this experiment, was to exclude people from a social interaction to make their cortisol levels rise. So in order to feel excluded from a situation, you first have to feel included in the situation. So first off, how the experiment would go, there would be two of us confederates, one participant, and then the researcher. So there were three of us who were in on it, participant who didn't realize we were in on it. So we did a couple of things, would fill out a couple of forms, take a survey, what's your mood right now, blah, blah, blah. And then we had a social interaction. And so the social interaction was you had to talk about ways you meet people in Davis. And so to feel included, we would all be the same year in school, but then we'd be different majors and different housing complexes, just so we could avoid oh, did you take this professor? Or, oh, do you take this bus line, etc. So the first two conversations, we would completely include everyone, basically go around in a circle. So we'd say, since I live in a dorm, I meet a lot of people that way. We just leave our doors open, have an open door policy, and there's a lot of events that go on in our lounge. So everyone would say, oh yeah, I do that too, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And I say, oh, I do IMs, etc. And then starting on the next conversation, you start to ignore them a little bit. So we do this by shifting our body language, only leaning more towards the other confederate. And this just progressed. So then we would kind of look at the person, then not. And then it was a 5-minute conversation. So 3 minutes into the conversation, if the person said something, we'd be like, well, I meet people like this. And oh my gosh, it was so mean. And then by the end, you were cutting them off or talking over them completely to make them feel excluded. After that, we went back to our desks and did other things for an hour, had to give saliva samples. We all the confederates just fake spit into a little tube. Yeah, so there was more to the experiment, but we had to get their cortisol levels up to continue the rest of the experiment. So yeah, at the beginning, I felt so bad, just morally, I was just so sad about it and felt so bad. But at the end of the experiment, they do get debriefed. So yeah, in psychological experiments, as says the IRB, which is the Institutional Review Board, which is the ethics board for psychological experiments, you have to debrief participants at the end, especially if you use deception. You're not allowed to use deception in every experiment, but to a certain extent, if it gets approved, you can, but you do have to debrief them afterwards. So at the end of the hour-and-a-half long study, the 2 Confederates would be outside in the hall, and then we'd actually just leave. And then the researcher, like the other research assistant, would then debrief the participant. So first they would try to ask them things like, well, they wouldn't ask leading questions, but basically what they were trying to get out of them was, did you feel excluded? What % did you feel you were included in the conversation? Just try to get a feel for if, like, subjectively, they think, not that they think their cortisol levels rose, but how they think the conversation went. Because some people are just like, oh yeah, they just had more common with each other. They had just more things in common with each other. So I didn't really feel left out. Some people are like that, so then you know, okay, well, their cortisol levels probably didn't rise then, so you might have to throw out that data. Yeah, so just trying to get a feel for that. And then the researcher would say, okay, so those were actually Confederates. They were trained to exclude you from the conversation. It's nothing against you. They do it to everyone, etc., etc., etc. So one time, I was a Confederate, and then immediately afterwards, I went to a gymnastics club. And my worst fear happened where the participant was also at gymnastics club. So I saw her, we were in the same line for like tumbling or something. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. They told you I didn't mean to, right? Like, there's nothing against you, like, we have to do it. She's like, oh yeah, it's fine, like, she told me, blah, blah, blah. So then, like, I got along with the girl afterwards, like, everything was fine. But yeah, that's the only time I've run into a participant after excluding them on purpose. So yeah, that's just some of the fun things you get to do in psychological research. If you go to a large research university, there are plenty of opportunities to be involved, especially if you want to go on to graduate school. They really want to see you getting involved in things like that. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this Psych 101 video. I hope you learned a little bit more about how psychological experiments are conducted, and I hope you enjoyed the experiment. Please give this video a big thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and also hit the little bell so you can get notifications whenever I upload a new video. Follow me on Instagram if you want to follow my adventures. I have started posting on the Instagram story, so pretty proud of myself for starting to do that. So yeah, anyway, hope you guys have a wonderful day. Remember to keep dreaming out loud, and I will see you guys next time.